This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
Hi guys, I'm Carl Gruber, author of the new book True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship. Are you tired of being caught in the web of negativity that our ego-driven world mandates as reality? Say one positive thing and all you hear is, get real, get your head out of the clouds and prepare for the worst. Well, I'm here to tell you that negativity is not reality, and that the opposite is true. This is why I have written and published this book. In my new book, I show you how you can walk hand in hand and in alignment with the law of attraction and eternal universal spiritual truths, which will allow you to make all the positive, loving, happy, abundant, and healthy things you desire your reality. Find out how you can become a consistent co-creator of your life with the universe and get out of that negative spiral of lack, attack, and judgment. Get your copy today of my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship by Carl Gruber, now available as an ebook and paperback on Amazon. I'm your host and producer, Carl Gruber, and I started this show as I segued out of my career as a radio disc jockey and host because I am a longtime student of all things spiritual and metaphysical. I have a deep passion to know, really know what is beyond the veil of this egoic-driven world that we perceive. And as we are now well underway into year number 5 of this show, I continue to search out and have my guests, experts, and teachers who can come and help lift that veil that obscures the knowledge, truth, and light that lay beyond our 3D realm. This is also why I wrote and have now published my brand new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship, a book that will help you build a rock-solid personal foundation so you can become a consistent co-creator with the universe of the life that you really want to live. Check it out now on Amazon by clicking that link below, and it's available as an ebook or paperback. And please don't forget to click that subscribe button also below to this podcast so that you never miss a single episode. Now, let's blast off beyond the 3D veil to expand our minds and hearts with the beautiful knowledge that lay on the other side. Today, we do that by talking with a woman known as the Gritty Mystic, Tracy King. For more than 20 years, she has dedicated her career to designing transformational experiences. She's a master learning designer, professional development consultant, best-selling author, and owns an instructional design agency. As the Gritty Mystic, an intuitive channel and transformative teacher, Tracy reveals where her clients are in the levels of awakening to take the guesswork out of the divine development, allowing more yes and less. I love that part. The goal is to embody your soul self, the aspiration as spiritual alchemists of old did. And by the way, Tracy has her own podcast called The Gritty Mystic. So welcome, Tracy. It's awesome to have you here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Carl.
Well, I've been doing a little bit of research. I think I have a lot more to know about you, but I like to start off with personal stories with my guests. How the heck did you get where you are today? What was your journey like in your early years to awakening to this more enlightened realm that you're in today?
Great question. I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian family.
Wow.
And so, I mean, like my family was an evangelist family, tent
Mm.
revivals, really, old school fundamentalist type of situation there. And that really shaped how I saw my world, how I saw my gifts, instead of having intuitive gifts and being in touch with, spirits and guides. Everything was framed through the lenses of good and evil, angels and demons, and really terrified me. And so I really shut down a lot of that for a good period of time, because everything had to be interpreted through the lens of our fundamentalist beliefs. Well, I moved through the college and the marriage, and I came to this point in my life, which I affectionately call my dumpster fire moment, where things just started to crash and burn. And my relationship was not working. I was deeply depressed, seriously depressed. I felt like I didn't have a purpose or a reason for being, and this like didn't jive with how I had with my framework, right? And so my experience and my framework were not meeting. And that's when a lot of people have the pain of awakening, that the first growing pains of what the heck is going on here. And I realized that the world would not end if my marriage ended, that there was a life and purpose for me, and that was really rooted in becoming my authentic self. I was not living authentically. I was living within a framework and according to rules that had been set up for me that were not authentic to who I was. And so, having gone through that divorce experience and reorganizing my life and career, and starting to ask myself questions like, what do I want? What feels authentic to me? I know I had all these rules before, but now I'm just going to set that aside, just press pause on that. And I'm going to look at all of these options. And guess what? I found a lot of authenticity outside of the framework that I had been living within for so many years. And so, realizing that for me, spirituality is outside of institutionalized religion. For me, I have these gifts of communicating with spirit, of channeling spirit guides, of connecting with, the multi-dimensional reality that we're actually living in, and applying, my innate gifts of teaching to help other people access that inner wisdom so that they can align their lives as well to really finding that purpose is who they are. It's not something outside of them. It could be a career, but it's going to always derive from who we are. And so really moving through creating my own personal spirituality, exiting from something that had been handed to me that I had assumed was truth, to really digging into what is truth and how do I fit into this and what can I give so that others can connect with their own truth. That's a snapshot of the journey right there.
Wow, that is quite a transition. What did you call that? The dumpster fire? What was that?
Yeah, my dumpster fire moment.
Yes. So a form of catharsis. I mean, to go from fundamentalist Christian growing up to becoming what is now a big movement in the world. I even write about this in my new book, SBNR, Spiritual But Not Religious. So many people are leaving the dogma of organized religion because it's so restricting and based in actually in the egoic belief of sin and and judgment and fire and hell and damnation. So I could see where you're coming, but you did say one thing, that I think many, many, many people at some point in their life, especially during hard times, say, what do I really want? A lot of people forget to ask that.
We're not allowed to ask that inside the fundamentalist framework. You play your role. You don't get to ask questions like that. You don't get to think critically. And so what a moment to finally realize all of these things that I had accepted as roles of who I am supposed to be, how I'm supposed to perform, are not all in alignment with who I truly am. So what do I want? What do I want to contribute? Who am I in this world? And that is different than those really narrow, restricted, control-based belief system and roles.
So you had this transition to what I've read, you're an intuitive channel. And how did you come up with the term gritty mystic?
Oh, that's a good story. I have spent my entire career studying transformation and specifically with my, about around learning, what happens in the brain to facilitate transformation in our lives and our behavior, in our skills. And learning hurts. There's actual like physical things that happen in your brain, but we have to like try and fail and refine and do the work of learning to make it our own. And so whenever we're talking about transformation on whatever level, whether we're learning, whether we're developing our own personal spirituality, whether we're expressing our gifts, there's work involved. There's grit in it. You have to own it. And sometimes it's not always going to be love and light. Sometimes you got to put in the work, right? You got to dig in and get your hands dirty a little bit. And so that's some of the grit that I talk about. Just all about realness, spiritual realness, but not candy coating it, not bypassing around the fact that a lot of people have trauma that they have to work through in order to continue to express, giftedness or connect with giftedness or their innate wisdom. These are conversations we need to have as spiritual beings in order to really express who we came here to be. So that gritty part to me is important. And also I tend to have colorful language on my podcast. That is just me. But the mystic part of it is I'm a really cosmic being naturally. And I've always been on the hunt for a personal divine connection. And I think a lot of people really crave that. And guess what? We can have that. That's actually who we are. Connecting to who we are, the multidimensional part of who we are, is something we can not only connect to, channel, but we can also become. We can embody that point of view in our day, and how might that transform who we show up as and what our experience can be if we really connect with that. So that's the two parts of the gritty mystic, and embodying that in as a person in the show, and helping others, really seek out their personal path in that.
So what exactly is an intuitive channel? I mean, do you channel etheric beings from different dimensions and ascended masters, or how does this work out?
Yeah, so there's different levels of connection. I can definitely see and interact with and sense people who have departed. So ghostiness that is still wanting to interact with people, and often that's on more of a forgiveness level and expressing that they're okay, and just tidying up some loose ends that we tend to have sometimes when loved ones pass. But then most of my work is on the spirit guide level. And so helping people connect with their guides, but I also channel my guides. And, I have, not only can I hear them, but I can see them. And so I can describe a representation of them that might connect symbolically with the person in their journey. And that helps to just give them some verification that things that they have intuited, symbols that they, feel are important to them. When that's reflected in the visualization of this guide, it just helps them realize that, they're really tuning in, that this is genuine, and that it's something that they can embrace and pursue. And so as an intuitive channel, I combine my gifts of intuition with, the clairs of being able to connect with multidimensional beings and bring that wisdom into our now moment.
What was the first time you realized that you had this ability? Was that a shocker to you, or did you realize what was going on?
That's a great question, because growing up, when I was I would actually speak out loud to my primary guide as if they were like a friend with me, like hanging out at the house, right? And I would see shadows and sense movement and sense presence. But this wasn't something that I could communicate to my family, right? Because of our fundamentalist worldview. And so at some point, I was told to like stop that nonsense, right? Because invisible friends are not real, and all of that. And I still have memories of, we moved a lot, and of having lonely moments and still having that relationship, right? Mm-hmm. But as we grow, we have to, in a fundamentalist type of worldview, we have to assign all of those spirit relationships as either God or something unsavory. And so I framed my spiritual connections in that manner. So my intuition, that must be the Holy Spirit, right? When I get hits, I wouldn't call them hits. It would be like a word from the Lord, right? Yeah. But what it was me connecting to my inner wisdom, using my intuition, connecting to my guides. So after, the dumpster fire moment, when I just let religion go and allowed myself to be a spiritual being without the trappings of a set of rules around it, of ways that I had to be, and having a profound experience that connected me more formally with that guide that I've been, working with my entire life, and really affirming that relationship was real. I was able to really launch into just diving deep into what that could become. And that opened way for me to understand that, there's a team of people that are supporting what the Tracy King is doing right here. Everyone has, their own team of support, and I could connect with those different beings. Some are ancestors, some are guardians, some are ancient ones that all, connect with us on a different level for a different purpose, and sometimes through a different season. And what a beautiful support system we've set up for ourselves so that we can accomplish what we set out to do in this life.
It's interesting because before I started this podcast, I had no idea how many beings, how many humans on planet Earth are channels and conscious channels, trance channels. And I've had many of them on my guests. I have had some amazing conversations with ascended masters right here on. You can go back and look at my past episodes. But yeah, it's an amazing ability. And my understanding is we all have the ability. We just have to open up if we desire to allow this wisdom to come through us.
Absolutely. So if channeling is something that you feel like you might want to try, or you desire it, it's definitely something that a gift set that you can open up and you can explore and you can develop. What a lot of people don't realize is when we're connecting to our own higher wisdom and we're beginning to embody our soul self, that's also a form of channeling. It's a form of allowing an expanded point of view to operate through us. It is us. It's not like we're like being possessed by anything. It's just the larger part of us getting to play in the sandbox here, and how much fun that can be, because there's so much we can see beyond, our physical senses. And I use the word, the word see loosely. Doesn't all have to be, part of an optical thing, but there's so much more possible. And so every one of us, as we connect to that inner wisdom, whether you call it inner wisdom, higher self, soul self, living from that point of view is a form of channeling.
And I guess I have kind of a personal question, and I hope you don't mind. I mean, since you grew up in a fundamentalist Christian family and doing what you do now, are you able to still talk to them or stay in communication with them?
They don't really want to talk about that so much because they're still very much entrenched within that system. Some of it for them has softened, to other forms of fundamentalism, not quite as rigid as, what I was raised in my childhood, but still within those same boundaries that the only spiritual contact that we are able to have is either God and angels, or Satan and the demonic realm. And so that doesn't give them space to really consider what else is possible, and that makes me very confusing to my family.
Well, I appreciate you answering that question, but again, with all of the ascended masters and teachers and experts I have spoken to here, every single one I've ever encountered speaks nothing but unity, oneness, love, light, and truth. And perhaps some people might think it's like The Exorcist. When that happens, they start, but I've never seen that except in Hollywood, and every single one I've ever spoken to have been nothing but wanting to be here to help humans rise above the 3D and back into the light, into the truth.
Absolutely. Oh man, Hollywood is just corrupted. Such a beautiful thing. It's not scary at all. It's actually our truth. They're just speaking our truth from another place and hoping to reach us in our little moment of amnesia here about who we really are.
Well, yeah, in the realm of time, it's a big moment of amnesia, but you're right.
Yeah.
It really is a little moment. But, I read this too, I believe on your one sheet. You have this interesting question. It says, what do the surprising origins of Christianity reveal? Can you explain that?
Oh, yes. Let's go on a little trip.
All right.
So if we take ourselves back in history to the first century, where Christianity originated, we can see at this time that there concurrently were a lot of what are called mystery religions. And those mystery religions were comprised of two parts. One part was allegorical. It was a story, and it was a story of the sun god savior. That was one of the most popular mystery religions in the first century. And then the second part was what that allegory means in terms of how we can grow as a spirit being and connect with our source self. And so the sun god savior mythos is about a child born of a virgin in a cave, visited by wise men who brought gifts, who was precocious in growing up and challenged the teachers of that particular religion, that cultural context, who grew up to be a wonder worker, having a group of disciples, getting baptized, preaching some good news about the fact that you too could, connect with God, that your sins could be forgiven, and eventually, though, was betrayed, died in a brutal way involving some form of wood, was buried, resurrected, and promises eternal life. Now, this sounds very much like the Christian story. Sounds very familiar to people who have grown up in a Christian tradition. This is a mythos that spans cultures. There are at least 20, possibly up to 30 of these mystery cults that used this framework as their allegory. Embedded within the allegory are all kinds of, as we know, parables and teachings and things that on the surface show us a way to be together in community. But behind the scenes, there of the mystery cult are the tools, the spiritual technology to transcend just a menial material existence and realize who we truly are and embody that soul self. And so the surprise is that Christianity is one of those cults. It's just that it got divorced from the mystery component of itself quite early in its process. And so what scholars are showing is that the Christianity that we know today, the fundamentalist Christianity that we know today, is the allegory part of a mystery religion. The mystery part of it was the Gnostics, which used that storytelling in order to tell, show people how to become more of who they truly are, connect with that God self, that soul self. And the curious thing is, Christianity was supposed to be born in the Jewish tradition. That was its new take. Culturally, all different cultures would use this pattern in order to create a mystery religion that would be relevant to its people, its culture, its religious base. And the fact is, first century Jewish people were not interested in an allegorical savior. They wanted a legitimate, real life warrior king that was going to throw off the Romans, right? So that they could create their own kingdom in the Middle East region. And that's not what this religion offered. And so some speculate that might be one reason why those early, they didn't call them Christians at the time, but the early proponents of this new mystery cult started to say, oh, but our story about our Jesus, our allegory, is actually true. He's a real life person. He lived and died and all that stuff. But we can see in the concurrent literature of the time, people belonging to the other mystery religions were like, hey, you guys, we see what you're doing. We see that you ripped off our stories and you're now saying that yours is true and ours is false. Like, how does that even work? So they were getting called out, but they still persisted in this narrative that their allegory was true, that the Gnostics, as you can see in Paul's letters, they battled the Gnostics, saying that they were, false and, avoid those teachings and all of that kind of stuff. But really what sealed the deal was when Constantine saw that fundamentalist Christianity could be used as a tool in order to bring some more mechanism of control around his empire. And so he declared Christianity, fundamentalist Christianity, as the religion of the empire. And that's when a lot of killing started. When Christianity went to town, really eradicating its competition, the other mystery religions, so that we would never know its true origins. But the evidence is all there. This is not a popular story among fundamentalists because they truly do believe in the factual story of Jesus, but it doesn't add up. And historically and culturally, there's a lot more going on. And the thing is, this two-part, mystery religion template also has a correlate that's not religious, and that's alchemy, which is far older than the mystery religions that we just talked about, far, like 10,000 years or more older. Mm-hmm. And alchemy, of course, the outer story is changing lead into gold, right? But the mystery, the spiritual technology, are these phases of awakening. There are 3 phases of awakening to embodying your soul self, to full enlightenment. And that's the true technology underneath alchemy. And that's the play space that I'm bringing forward now, is like, how can we learn from these ancient tools, how we now, when there's so much more is possible and so many people are awakening to their true potential, employ these spiritual technologies to really get some momentum under really understanding who we are and what we're capable of here and now.
Whoa, wow, you've done some research on this, and you must have done a thesis on this. This is
I like to go deep.
Yeah, well, and too, thank you for that, because that was really, really informative, much that people don't understand or appreciate. Wow, thank you for that. So there's a couple other things that I would like to ask you. Many of my guests on this show speak about ascending into the 5th dimension, or the 5D. What are your feelings on this topic?
So we have to decolonize this subject a little bit. Ascension is, in some of the stories that we're hearing, that we're seeing on our feeds, that are sprouting up all over on the interwebs and the YouTubes, really sound like the Left Behind story from fundamentalist Christianity. You know? Really sounds like some people are just gonna like vibe up and yeet on out of here and leave everybody else mired in the BS that's happening in the third dimension, but they're going to be in a much better place. And that's not really how it works. So when we think about alchemy and the levels of awakening and what that means for us personally in, you know, really embodying our soul self and being able to create from an expanded consciousness point of view, we can also apply that to who we are as a collective. That right now, our collective is in a dumpster fire moment. And we have a lot of trauma that's coming to the surface that we really need to heal. So that we can allow something new to emerge, so that we can be who we are meant to be and co-create a new way of being together. And so when we think about the fact that it's not just us here operating as individuals, whenever you talk to the ascended masters, whenever you talk to the guides, it's a we thing. It's not a me thing out there. And they often use plural pronouns just to demonstrate that. And so if they're, you know, when we're talking about ascension is going to be collective. It's something we're going to co-create together. It's not escaping to something better. It's us healing what we've created here. We created the conditions that we're seeing here. We're not going to escape what we created, but we have an opportunity to create something new. And we can do that by doing our own internal work, but also realizing our role in healing and co-creating as a collective.
You know, to me, as a law of attraction practitioner and teacher, this makes complete sense to me, because if everything is energy, which it is, and on a mass consciousness scale, as more and more people raise their awareness about exactly what you're talking about and teaching, it does make sense that collectively we would ascend to a different, energy dimension of consciousness. So it does seem to be pretty collectively accepted that humanity is going through it, and there's no particular time frame. You know, it's just happening as we go along. But it seems that more than ever, and that's one of the questions, you know, of the main question of the show is, why now more than ever are the people of the world awakening to all things spiritual, enlightening, and metaphysical? And it kind of goes right along with what you're talking about.
You know, I love this conversation right here, because it's really important to realize two things. One is that the more we do our work and the more people are really, you know, inviting that expanded consciousness point of view into this now moment, the more is possible for the entire collective. It's quantum physics. I mean, we're leveling up. Whatever one person is doing is impacting us all, right? So the more people that are awakening, the more people that are like, hey, I'm meant for more here. I came here for a reason. I want to connect with that. I want to do the work to become, you know, who I intended to be. Then we're shifting what's possible in our play space. But the second part of it that I really want to help people reframe is ascension isn't something that's going to happen to us, and one day it's going to be like, boop, ascended. It's something we're co-creating together. And right. Some of that co-creation perhaps is not fully conscious, you know, because the greater part of our being is definitely playing a role in that. But we're going to get more traction and gravity within that when we become conscious of what we're creating here together. So what conditions would we prefer if we were to continue to live on this earth throughout this entire lifetime? What might we do to co-create something new and better and different? And that will naturally elevate what is possible for us to experience here once we do that work.
And, you know, through me doing this podcast and being a life coach, I am now connected to, for lack of a better term, hundreds of light workers around the world. And these people are those people you spoke about, willing to do the work to raise their vibrational level, their awareness, their consciousness to an ascended level. And so it is happening out there. There are people like you, like me. But yeah, gosh, you just have some great stuff to talk about. But I do want to find out more about what you do right now. You're a transformational teacher. How so?
So, one of the things that I like to do when I'm teaching about this content, or I teach about other content as well, is help people really make the teaching their own. And so a lot of times we'll see courses, or we'll see, teachings, or, opportunities to work with someone to learn something new that's informational, but it doesn't help transform us. And so my work right now is to help people move through the cycle of making this, this spiritual technology, this new wisdom, to make it their own, to really connect it to who they are and what they came here to do, how they're showing up to play in the sandbox, but then also help them be the person. It's so much about being that they intended to be. And when it comes to law of attraction, it really is, everything is rooted in who we're being. All parts, all components of what we see in our reality are rooted in who we're being. And that's where transformation really is rooted as well. And so my work is to help people not only understand what's possible, make that their own, but help them become the person that really is co-creating the reality that they want to see in their life.
So when you have many clients come to you who want a personal transformation, what is the most common or biggest issue that people want to have transformed in their life?
A lot of people are really invested in their, developing their personal spiritual path, but they feel stuck. And people feel stuck for a number of different reasons, but that gives us a starting point, is that frustration. We can get mired in that frustration. It can create more frustration, right? And so a great starting place for us is to see where they are on this spiritual alchemical journey, so we can kind of see what processes they might be mired in, what new processes, practices, ways of thinking we can kind of play around with that will loosen up whatever's calcified, that will give them a new frame for really seeing where they are and what they're embodying energetically, so they can take that next step and really level up to that place that they desire. And so it's a really individual journey. We start with the map of, what is possible through spiritual alchemy, is taking us all the way from the dumpster fire moment to full enlightenment, and then really apply what is happening where they are in that journey, so that they can see, facilitate what they want to see happen in their life, in their now moment.
So very interesting. When a client comes to you and wants to go through this transformational journey, you're an intuitive channel. Are you, in a form of a way, it almost sounds like you're a medium. Are you able to connect to their soul family around them and then give them the channeled advice?
Yeah, that's often a starting place. We'll start with, their guide team, and I don't want to step in and be an intermediary when they can do it themselves. That's often a starting place, but I also want to coach them to a place where they feel connected to that wisdom as well. And so it's kind of a co-created thing that's happening there. It's more of a facilitation. So often I will start with sharing, what I'm seeing, what I'm receiving, really connecting them to what they've already felt and already know. And it's like, oh yeah, I've heard that theme, or I've encountered that idea, or that symbolism is really important and powerful to me, so that they know that they're already in some ways connected to their team, but then helping them grow into that connection. So it's a little bit of both, but I really want to nurture a self-reliance in that, because that is so empowering to know that we can get clarity from our team and bring our frustrations to our team and just really develop that relationship with them.
I love that you use the term team for our powerful friends that hang around with us. I actually call my team of spirit guides, I call them Team Carl.
I love that. I love that.
whenever I go out for a run, I'll say, all right, Team Carl, come on, we're going out for a run. So I
That's
know
perfect.
they're running there, right there, side by side. And, oh, here comes a car. Carl, move over to the side a little bit,
That's right.
You're amazing. I'm really, really love what you do. And there's one other sentence that I read on your website or wherever I saw it, that I actually have no idea what this sentence means. So if you could explain it. You posted this. What does the crescendoing conversation about deconstruction signal? What?
Oh, yes.
No
So
idea what that means.
well, let's talk about it. So people who are awakening and they're exiting a fundamentalist Christian background or a different religion's fundamentalist branch, there's this big conversation happening right now called deconstruction. And that's kind of the first pit stop is when you've grown up in a system that's told you that critical thinking is off limits and you start critical thinking, which is, how do all these pieces fit together? Why do I believe what I believe? Where do these beliefs originate from? Do I actually believe them? You're deconstructing this big, massive package of, I guess this is what I believe and who I am, into what do I actually own here? And some people who move through deconstruction might fully leave the religion. Some might shift it up a little bit and they might find a new home within that religion that's not quite so fundamentalist. Some will deconstruct and deconvert all the way to atheism or agnosticism. Some will find themselves in that spiritual but not religious space, and they're open to exploring what else is out there because they know inside of them and they've had experiences that there is this greater spiritual reality, and they've deconstructed from the point of view that this is not my belief set, but now I'm going to be exploring what is, what could be, what's possible for me. And so for me, the whole deconstruction conversation is signaling that fundamentalism is not meeting a need. People are leaving the Christian church, as an example, in droves. And the reason is it doesn't make sense. People are seeing the constructs of this control mechanism. They're seeing patriarchy embedded in this fundamentalist point of view. They're seeing white supremacy hard baked into it. And that's not making sense to these people who are awakening their minds, their souls, their spirits are awakening to the greater reality of who we are and what we can be. It doesn't make sense to them in their inner core of their being to continue to persist in frameworks that would oppress other people just because of the color of their skin or what pronouns they identify with, or whether they feel like they were born in the wrong gender body, or that they're gay, lesbian, bi, whatever along the spectrum of sexuality, that does no longer make sense to them. And so they have to pull apart those beliefs and then reassemble beliefs that make sense to them. So what it signals is fundamentalism is dying and something new is possible. And I'm so excited for us to create that something new together.
And I think that's actually what you're talking about is part of the movement to a higher ascended level of consciousness and awareness and being in alignment with unconditional love and truth. And thus, as we talked about earlier, the movement towards that SBNR, spiritual but not religious, because people are finally seeing that the exoteric dogma of these organized religions has been all about control.
Right.
And so I even cite this in my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a study on SBNR, and it's specifically millennials are leaving organized Christianity or religion, not just Christianity, in droves. But it's a good thing. I think really we're now open to understanding without those restrictions and damn it, you're going to hell, that type of thing. Oh, really? I can live my life as a human being. And I have found, as I've woken up spiritually and enlightening, is now you can go through your daily life and go to work and do whatever you need to do and be a mom or a dad, but you're just more peaceful. You're a little more quiet and you smile a little bit more and you don't let, you're a little above the battlefield. You can see all the drama and trauma down here, but it's not important. You understand what it's all about.
Right. I mean, how refreshing that you don't have to live your whole life judging everyone and and trying to control them and what they believe and who they are and what they do. It's not your job. And this whole reality that we can coexist out here and you can do you and we can do this thing over here is something that, the younger generations are really all about, because they're not about following rules for rules' sake. They're not about just subsisting in frameworks of control. They want to know why, and they want meaning in their life. And they don't feel like they need to control what other people are doing. It's okay for other people to be who they are. And yes, so much yes. Allow people to be authentic and be who they are without having, just to have such a vice grip on everyone else's experience. It's so liberating.
Yeah, I love you. You're exactly right. It's a freeing feeling. Just a reminder for our viewers and listeners, we're talking to an amazing lady, Tracy King, the gritty mystic, she calls herself. She's a podcaster, a teacher, an author, an intuitive channel. One last question, and then I want to check on one other thing with you too. What would be, as simple as you could state it, what would be your definition of spirituality or true spirituality?
For me, spirituality is being your authentic self, is living each day, aligning with who you are, allowing more of that to show up in all of your relationships, all of your interactions, and then resisting the constant pressure to spin all of the plates of doing and just be. Just sink into being who you are and allowing that to be the gravity that attracts all that you want to see and experience into your life. And so it's not a religion. It's not a framework that you have to embrace. It's simply being authentic to who you are, which is a multidimensional being having a wonderful experience here. Someday we'll laugh about it.
Well, that was well said. Thank you for that. And one final thing I want to check about you personally. Evidently, you must have had a great career as a business person, or you do, because you have a book called The Competitive Advantage, which is, from what I could see, I haven't read it, but it seems to be strictly business focused as far as I can tell. So you've had a business career, and then are you still doing that combined with what you do now?
Yeah. How that fits together is I have a consultancy and an instructional design agency that's called Inspired Ed. And that is centered around creating transformational learning experiences. And then Gritty Mystic is all about creating transformational spiritual experiences, really connecting people to the divine and their own inner wisdom. So both are all about transformation and what's possible, but just applied to different contexts. And so, Competitive Advantage is all about the business of learning and creating learning that people will want to buy and consume, that will change their lives. And so that's what that work is all about.
Wow, this is so cool. You are a very talented lady. Thank you so much for being on this show. What is your website and the best way people can connect with Tracy King?
Yeah, well, first I want to thank you, Carl, for holding space for these beautiful conversations. This is an amazing commitment. I know what it takes to commit to this, and I just deeply thank you for this co-created moment that we've shared together and are sharing with listeners. I would love to connect with listeners. You can find me at grittymystic.com. I hang out on the Instagram at grittymystic, as well as TikTok at grittymystic. And so, find me and let's connect.
And check out her podcast, The Gritty Mystic, which is on all the usual places, YouTube, iTunes, Pandora, etc., all that too.
All the places. Yep.
I think I saw even on The Gritty Mystic, we can buy you a cup of coffee.
You can. Can. I'm on Buy Me a Coffee too as well. So yeah, chip in. Everything goes back to the show.
I love it. So, well, thank you again, Tracy King, for being on World Awakenings. My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.